Hey, what's going on, guys? Aarava here, and welcome to your top 5 moments from the 2018 Australian Grand Prix, the opener to the 2018 season. So I'm getting you guys involved in this series that hopefully I'll be doing all year round. I tweeted straight after the Grand Prix on Twitter what your top moments were, and we're going to collate it into a top 5 here. So let's get straight into it. Coming in at number 5 is Verstappen's quite dramatic spin in and out of turn 1. That really summed up the Dutchman's race as a whole. Frustration, really, especially for the first half of both Red Bull cars being stuck behind traffic, especially the two Haas cars, and then all race long, unfortunately for Verstappen, just couldn't pull it together and just couldn't make those overtakes happen. Obviously, Melbourne, a very tricky place to overtake with plenty of dirty air kicked in, but a very, nicely controlled spin actually from Verstappen to not put it in the wall, and he got on his way quite quickly actually in terms of the way he turned the car around out of turn 1. Could have been a lot nastier. Could have replicated Bottas's crash in qualifying there. So that was quite a peaking drama moment there early on in the race. Number 4 was the hilarity of Hamilton, the timing of his team radio to when he went off circuit late onto the race. He said eventually in the team radio to his Mercedes team after asking if he can push harder, obviously tyre temps being quite crucial at the end of that race. Eventually went on to say, I'm going for it, and then within a sector then goes off onto the grass, pushing a bit too hard and lost like 2 seconds. He did do quite well actually. You could see the pace of that Mercedes car. He closed that gap straight away, setting fast up to the Grand Prix constantly at the end of that race. Eventually, obviously, having to just give up as obviously, as I mentioned before, Melbourne, very tricky place to pass. Your Mercedes just calling the white flag essentially and winding down the engine for the last 5 laps where Vettel could enjoy that victory. Number 3, Fernando Alonso, McLaren Renault, coming home for some great points. P5, holding off Verstappen at the end and also getting ahead of their main rivals, I guess you could say, which are Renault then, and obviously Alonso's team radio, really great as ever to have him back. Mid-race, quite a funny one. His engineer told him some info, and Alonso didn't quite like the kind of quietness of it all and the tone really, and said, come on man, we've got a long race ahead of us. And then the engineer didn't quite come back with as energetic of a phrase as he could have said, I don't think, in my opinion at least. As soon as Alonso said you need more energy, we've got a long race to go, he's like, yes mate, yeah, don't worry, I'm here all race, don't worry, we're in the fight, let's go. And then obviously after the race, on the lap back to the pits, Alonso saying we can fight, great to see that McLaren are back actually, genuinely, after all the jokes in testing, all the obviously plunders they had in testing, not only testing FP1 as well, obviously remember they had that exhaust issue in FP1 where both cars couldn't do a lot of running. After all of that drama, for them to actually come through, obviously not toe-to-toe because Ricciardo pretty much waltzed away from Alonso, but the fact that they were still there on strategy merit then and didn't have to fall straight away back due to the engine troubles or just any kind of issues with the car was great to see, and hopefully there's more to come for McLaren Renault. Number 2, Vettel's lead change. That was quite a huge moment in the race obviously, and depending on what side you're on, a little bit controversial. So obviously Vettel was out in the lead of the Grand Prix when the virtual safety car came out. Hamilton had already pit along with Kimi Raikkonen. That was quite, lucky and strategic from Ferrari as well. Raikkonen coming in first. Obviously, he had track position. He comes in. Hamilton covers him off, and then Vettel is out there in the lead still. Virtual safety car is out. Vettel comes into the pit, and him coming under the virtual safety car to pit means he lost less time than Hamilton did in the pit stops. A lot of confusion there on Twitter I saw of people saying Vettel gained time effectively on track under the virtual safety car, coming to the pit lane and going down the pit lane. It's more of a case, you've got to think about it, he's losing less time under a virtual safety car in relation to everyone else going slower around on a slower delta time on the virtual safety car. But Vettel comes out of the lead, and then Toto Wolff after the race actually suggested it was a software fault. He said that the delta time specified to the team and kind of the green thumbs up, if you will, to the Mercedes guys on the pit wall was that they needed around 12 seconds. Hamilton had 12 seconds in the bag. Unfortunately, it looks like calculations afterwards shows it to be they needed about 15 seconds. So Toto Wolff there, maybe on purpose, taking some heat off the team and what they did. Obviously, luck plays into it, but he was blaming that software glitch for not unfortunately having foreseen they needed a bigger gap in case they need a virtual safety car. These teams factor in what if a safety car comes in, what if a virtual safety car comes in. That's why countless times in the commentary box we'll sometimes hear about, do they have that safety car window to pit under, at the correct time, and they thought they had that. Unfortunately not. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. Obviously, either side you're going to be going one way or the other. Obviously, coming as a neutral, it's great to see such a topsy-turvy race as a whole. Not only that, but the entire race. But that's just the luck of the draw. You make your own luck sometimes, and as Vettel said in the press conference, And as Vettel said in the press conferences, sometimes it doesn't work out for you, sometimes it does. This time it did for Ferrari and Vettel, and this time not so much for Hamilton and Mercedes, but definitely a few times last season it was vice versa. So, just that's racing, sometimes it happens. But that was number 2 in the 2018 Australian Grand Prix. And finally coming in for mine, but also a lot of your guys, according to Twitter's top moment of the 2018 Australian Grand Prix, bit of a bitter moment really, to be honest, but Haas F1 double retirement within 2 laps. They were going so well. At one moment, they were P4 and P5. It was Ferrari 2-3, and then Haas P4 and P5. Crazy to see. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, they were frustrating the Red Bull cars, especially Verstappen with K-Mag there at the start of the Grand Prix. And they were going so well. And I really honestly think, due to the nature of Melbourne, they probably would have been able to stay ahead of the Red Bull cars, respectively, there. And then, within a blink of a flash, just, absolute disaster. Magnussen comes in, but slows up straight away and parks up in the same place Ricciardo retired last year in the 2017 Australian Grand Prix. He says it's a suspension issue, but what we know from the commentary box and from the cameras there is it seems to be a mistake on the pit stop there. We had a really funny moment actually of a pit crew member slamming the door into the kind of little cubby hole they have in the garage there, which is almost a very gifable moment of I've just had enough of everything, but it looked like that was going to be a really big calamity for K-Mag alone. Grosjean still going well though but then, as I said, within 1 lap then Grosjean comes in and they have this same exact failure, and Grosjean parks up on the exit of turn 2, which was ultimately the thing that called out the virtual safety car and handed Ferrari that race lead win. So you can say a lot about obviously the Haas, being a copy of Ferrari's last year car. So you can say a lot of conspiracy theories there, but at the end of the day, it's more just a kind of really, really bitter pill to swallow for not only that mechanic, but the whole team as a whole. Gunter Steiner on the pit wall, so devastated, and looked to be maybe an issue with the gun alone as well. Maybe not just the mechanic. I think it was an issue with the gun. We saw some scenes of some great photos, class act from Romain Grosjean going up to his mechanic, especially the one specifically that was on that tyre, and trying to console him, giving him hugs on the TV, on French TV especially, and class act there, trying to get around the team, being the team leader he is in Haas. And obviously I'm sure they'll come back next race. It looks like the package is there and it should be consistent enough for the first few races. So here's hoping, but that could be a big moment for Haas, because that could be the difference between constructors' positions come the end of the season. That's been your top 5 moments of the 2018 Australian Grand Prix. Got a few little honourable mentions though, as there are quite a few moments in that race that are worth mentioning. We've got Charles Leclerc on his debut in Formula 1 getting P13 in the Sauber Alfa Romeo. Obviously helped out with a lot of retirements there, but nonetheless great debut for him, and good going to just get it home in P13. Daniel Ricciardo, I already mentioned Verstappen's frustrations. Ricciardo gained quite a bit in that race then eventually, and kept the pressure on Kimi, and that was quite nice to see the fire with him. He said on the radio to his engineer, asking what he wants to do for the end of this race, saying, I don't want to let Raikkonen breathe. So, really, really fired up. We saw yesterday in interviews, Ricciardo, when Will Buxton asked him, would he be smiling at the end of the race? He said it will be a kind of, assassination kind of smile of wanting to kill people out there. And he definitely tried his best to try and get that elusive podium that he kind of half got in 2014, if you remember, but then got demoted out of it and excluded from the Grand Prix. I want to say a good job to Carlos Sainz to bring it through for P10 and managing to stay ahead of the Force India car of Sergio Perez, because at the end of that race, we saw a team radio there, Sainz alluding to feeling queasy. Now, I'm not too sure if that's because his drinks bottle broke and maybe he was feeling a little bit, lightheaded perhaps, or if the drinks bottle itself was a little bit, fluky in a way, and whatever he drank in there didn't taste quite good and didn't sit with him right in the stomach. But he was saying he's quite queasy. At one point, it really looked like he was dropping off massively, as if he was almost about to kind of just give way in the car. So massive kudos for him to keep it up in P10 there to get a double points finish for the Renault boys. And then finally, obviously, it had to come after all the joking around from myself, especially with the Honda finessing McLaren. Obviously, it was probably, logically, jokes aside, it was always going to happen. The Honda guys showing their true pace, really. Hartley, unfortunately, with a big lockup, that ruined his race, so we can't really tell how his race would have gone, because Gasly was going pretty well, but then unfortunately had to retire due to a power unit related issue there and parked up. So the Honda out tweets were back again, and I think it's going to be quite a struggle for Toro Rosso, really, with that reliability. Not great to be out of the Grand Prix, but of course we had other issues for Marcus Ericsson as well. And all in all, now as we look on the Grand Prix as a whole, that was your top 5 moments and some memorable ones. As a whole, though, a very, very topsy-turvy Grand Prix. I want to say that's what you want in a season opener. A lot of chaos, virtual safety car coming out, a lot of retirements, lots of positions swap there. If you look at the kind of lap counters from F1 that they tweet out. The amount of swapping that went on in that Grand Prix was quite good to see for a race opener. It's nervous times. I think that's what you want in round one. Obviously, if you're either side, if you're supporting specific drivers, it was either a great day or a bad day. Let me know in the comments below what you guys are thinking. But if you did enjoy this video, let me know in the comments below and give this video a like, and let me know if you guys do want to see this for every single race of the 2018 Formula 1 season. If you're new around here, do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. We have a podcast coming out tomorrow that will go in depth reviewing most of the Grand Prix, so look out for that. But guys, hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I've been aarava, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.